Hello and welcome to the last section, section 3 of chapter 12 in psychology, AP psychology for therapy and treatment. We're looking at evaluating psychotherapy. So looking at what types of psychotherapy work, what doesn't work. Picture here from awkward family photos, a lot of fun here. You know, if you're going to get a family photo, I mean, cool. Sunglasses, a parrot, and a gun with a bayonet. It's always needed. So the therapeutic alliance is the relationship or the bond between a therapist and a client. And it's important that the therapist and the client like each other, they get along, they match in terms of personality. It makes it much, much more effective. Clients and therapists that don't get along often struggle, and the client doesn't get what they need. And so the qualities of the participants. Clients are most likely to do well if they want help, if they're motivated to improve, to solve their problems. Those that don't want help, they're going to rebel. They're going to clash against any suggestions of help. And so it has to be a willing participant, a person willing to seek out treatment and seek help and seek change for it to really work. They also need support from the family. The family has to get on board and change their behaviors, change their patterns, their mental sets, their cognitive outlook on life to help the person really change and get the help they need. Personality traits of a person and the therapist play a role too. They do need to match. They need to get along. If they clash, it doesn't work. And so sometimes certain personalities that are very strong-willed sometimes, or if both are meek, they don't do as well as they possibly should. So culture and therapeutic connection. There are issues with culture. Cultural differences, especially between the therapist and the clients, can cause misunderstandings. There are certain things in cultures that are accepted, and other cultures that are not, and not well understood. Ethnic minorities are more likely to stay with a therapist that matches their own culture. If they understand who they are, they're more likely to stay with that. And if they stay with the therapy, it's more likely to succeed and get the positive outcome they're looking for. It's tough to distinguish cultural patterns from individual psychological problems. There are things that certain cultures do from the outside that others might look and go, that's weird. You know, like white people eating Thanksgiving at 2 in the afternoon. Why? Why do we do that? I'm not sure. Other cultures don't do that. And so it's just a small, quirky little thing. And so another one that we can look at is affection in the family. Some families are very affectionate. They kiss on the lips. They hug. They very close. Other families are very cold and distant. And so it can look awkward and like there's a lack of love in the family because they're not hugging and kissing like other families might. And so that's one thing that culturally is different among the things that the therapist might not understand. Some cultures or some families talk about their problems. Others bottle up and keep to themselves. And so that can be an issue. An example is Latino cultures have the susto, which is a loss of the soul that departed with the deceased loved ones. And so they struggle with that susto when the loved one is gone. That soul's not there for the whole family. So clinical practitioners versus psychological scientists. This is the big problem here, is the scientific side of it versus the practitioner gap. It's very easy to become a therapist in a lot of states, especially in Colorado. It takes a 2-week course. So how do you evaluate psychotherapy using empirical evidence? Therapists claim their relationship work and therapy cannot be measured. Kind of like teachers claim you can't measure everything a teacher does in the classroom based on one test. And so it's kind of the same thing. The relationship, the help that they're providing is hard to measure. And so that if you can't measure it, it's not empirical data, it's not a scientific, it's hard. And with people, it's difficult to really get a scientific feel for it a lot of times. Therapists often fail to keep up with the empirical findings. You get the rise of professional schools to train therapists without a connection to academic psychology or any science, and that's disturbing to psychologists. People that look at the science and the data and all that, and then see these new wings of therapy that has no basis for it. That's pseudopsychology. It's kind of the false things that we see like on Dr. Phil, on Oprah, you name it. The problems in assessing therapy, clients are motivated to get better, and so it skews the results. They want help, they want to do well, they don't want to see it fail. And so with that motivation there, it's hard to isolate the variable. Does the therapy actually help? Or is it the client's own motivation that's causing the new change and the new positive outlook? And so there's a justification of effort for the clients. If they're going to seek therapy, they want it to work. They're not going to waste their time and money just for the heck of it. Debriefing, they thought that trying to prevent disorders and long-term problems after a traumatic event, that basically, hey, you just saw this terrible car crash and half your family's killed, let's talk about it, let's debrief. They thought that that would help out, and actually it's ineffective and had adverse long-term effects according to researchers. That maybe that's not the best idea to do. So what works? Cognitive behavior therapies, CBT, emerges the model's choice for the following disorders. Depression, it works very well for. Anxiety, anger and impulsive violence, health problems, childhood and adolescent behavior problems, relapse prevention in terms of substance abuse. But no single type of therapy can help everyone. There's no magic bullet or panacea, as you would call it in science. Some people are too deeply disturbed for psychotherapy to work. Some people simply need medication. Some people are beyond help and need to be in an institution. Multi-systematic therapy, or MST, works well in areas with gang problems instead of lock-ins like South Park, like Timmy and Jimmy did here with the Crips and the Bloods. It aims to treat the individual and the environment they live in, so not just who they are, but where they live, and their culture can be counted into those factors. When therapy harms, the use of empirically unsupported, potentially dangerous techniques can hurt people. 1/4 to 1/3 of psychotherapists use inappropriate techniques to access painful old memories. They're doing more damage than they should. Inappropriate or coercive influence, which can create new problems for the client. If a therapist really believes that a disorder is present, clients may produce the actual symptoms. They might be say, hey, I'm depressed, and then so they might fixate on it and have a self-fulfilling prophecy. Some other things, prejudice and cultural ignorance on the part of the therapist. Conversion therapy, for instance, so the idea that you can pray away the gay, or you can convert people from being homosexual. The APA, the American Psychological Association, officially opposes it. President Obama opposed it. It is illegal in some states. It's legal in some states. It's very controversial. And then sometimes that closeness, that connection, leads to sexual intimacy and unethical behavior on the part of the therapist. Occasionally, therapists cross the professional line. They blur personal with professional, and that can do more harm than good. They behave almost like a cult leader. And also, psychotherapy is unregulated largely. Attachment therapies are opposed by the APA. In Colorado, it's legal to practice therapy without a license. 2-week courses can teach therapy techniques, which is scary because hairdressers require 1,500 hours of training in Colorado. I know in my neck of the woods, there was a cuddling therapist that people could come pay money to go cuddle with this particular person, and that was supposed to help them. That business did not last very long. There's a lot of questions out there. There's a lot of answers. If you have any questions, let me know. Get a hold of me directly. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching.